Okay, the definition for this MDS, nothing new, but in terms, but then when we are referring to the VMT for MDS, yeah, the importance of the diagnosis of MDS, actually only the small portion of this diagnosis is contributed by the bone marrow Trephine. It's just confirmed because the periphery, the clinical history, and some cytogenetic changes will have the features to favor MDS. And then the only confirmatory bone marrow will only will support the hypercellular marrow together with if there is any acceleration toward excess blast or overt marrow transformation. Yeah? Basically, the key features here is effective hematopoiesis with discrepancy between hypercellular marrow and peripheral cytopenia. This is in contrast opposite to MPN, where you have a hypercellular marrow and hypercellular cytosis, peripheral cytosis. So we have here, started with the case first, is an elderly patient, 65-year-old plus, 65 plus, with, okay, sorry. The typical clinical presentation of MDS would be an elderly patient above 65, and the incidence is between 3 to 12 of 100,000 population per year, with men affected more common than women. And the clinical features would result of cytopenia. Some have hepatosplenomegaly, and I quote this from this one, the fifth bone marrow pathology in 2019, yeah, from the recent meeting. Sorry, this is from the fifth bone marrow pathology blue book. Now they mentioned that you can have hepatomegaly and splenomegaly. There are two types, yeah? Primary MDS and also 3 MDS. Okay, this is our fourth edition of book. I'm referring the most of the picture. The classification, okay. The classification based on the 2016 classification has becoming more complicated. I normally, when I have a discussion with my hematopathology colleagues, I will just confirm the MDS, and then the further subclassification, I will just leave it to them to put into, because to me this is the subject that I dislike most, because too many what's that, the hair splitting classification. Okay, the diagnosis of MDS requires consideration of clinical peripheral blood and bone marrow aspirate. So all that is required in a straightforward case. So you have to, and we have to use the WHO diagnostic criteria and BMT. The Trephine is basically supplementary in this context. So diagnostic criteria for MDS with single lineage dysplasia, previously called refractory cytopenia with unilineage dysplasia. So these are the criteria. The role of bone marrow biopsy in MDS and related disorder is emphasized as early as the fourth edition. of our WHO Blue Book. The one is the quality check of the adequacy of meroaspirate. For example, if the Trephine, this Trephine provides quality check because when you have hemodiluted or hypocellular marrow on aspirate, you would the aspirate will only tell you this these hemopoietic changes, but not the cellularity. So Trephine will help to confirm the adequacy of meroaspirate. The Trephine will provide information on cellularity and stromal changes, for example, myelofibrosis, and then the yield tissue for number of studies. Here from aspirate, from Trephine, we can proceed to immunohistochemistry, in situ hybridization, and molecular procedure. And also, it is useful to exclude MPN, also MDS MPN, as well as identification of associated pathologies such as indolent systemic mastocytosis. BMT diagnosis on MDS quite straightforward. You have MDS without excess blast, MDS with excess blast, MDS in transformation, acute leukemia with possible pre-existing MDS or MDS MPN by applying different set of criteria. Okay, diagnosis of MDS on BMT, the morphology, you need to have both topographical dysplasia and also morphology, dysplastic morphology. In topography, this hemopoietic topographical this hemopoiesis will come first, and followed by all the morphological changes in dysplasia, and that is why it is very essential in the Trephine. First, you have to comment on the topography. So when you have the standard format of reporting Trephine, there are a column for reserved for topography, and this information of topography are essential when we are reporting MDS. Not so much on lymphoma or leukemia, but for MDS, yes, we need to have some comment on the topography. The commonest topography for MDS is there are some migration of precursor myeloid cells from paratrabecular into the intertrabecular spaces, and that paratrabecular spaces area being replaced by either erythroid or megakaryocytes. And then having described that, and then you can further describe on the morphology. Okay, the question is arise when you may sometimes encounter morphological dysplasia, but without topographical dysplasia. So how to, is that a case of MDS or something else? Yeah, yes. When you have discrepancy between topography and morphology, where you have dysplastic morphology, but the topography remain, especially the myeloid precursors along paratrabeculae, that particular dysplastic changes may not be MDS related. It could be something else. Drug induced, what's that? Single dysplasia of unknown significant. So anything, but unlikely to be MDS. And then from the morphology, you can study the pattern as well as the count, the number of population. Yeah? Then you can proceed with the immunohistochemistry to confirm your topography, the lineage, and also confirming the presence of blast. Okay, the topography, having described the adequacy, cellularity, and fibrosis, the topography, as I mentioned here, the loss of paratrabecular MPO positive precursors and the formation of ellipse in the intertrabecular spaces. So this topography, one, and also the hemopathic the description under hemopathic columns, the presence of either single lineage or all three lineages. This erythropoiesis, this granulopoiesis, or this megakaryocytes. Yeah? And also, of course, you have to add in, comment something on blast. Okay. The problem is blast count is quite poorly reproducible, particularly in a thick paraffin section. So in this case, the cluster of blasts appear more specific. Yeah? Because a cluster, as I mentioned earlier, and I've been described clearly by Barbara Bain, cluster will indicate significant into blast transformation or residual disease. Okay. So you have this is a four cell forming cluster or three cell forming clusters. So which later need to be confirmed by immunohistochemistry. And if CD34 is positive in all this, then it is a significant. Yeah. And what about ellipse? Yeah? Ellipse is a very immature cells, blast and promyelocyte, at least two other foci of immature cell not adjacent to bone trabeculae or vascular structure. Okay. So the criteria is should be away from bone trabeculae because bone trabeculae is the site. The paratrabeculae is the original site for immature myeloid. So this ellipse must be away from that and away from the vascular structures. This mega karyoposis, they are they will come as either as micromega or mega karyocyte or hypolobated. Yeah? So because in normal mega you have abundant cytoplasms. You have here you have sort of a high NC ratio, so become either become hypolobated, they are hypolobated, or they are as small as we may mistaken as lymphocyte because of the small size. So you have micromega and also hypolobated mega. Uh, so in this is MDS MLD, you have your hypercellular mirror with this hemopoiesis and also these erythropoietic changes. These erythropoietic changes varies. And also here you have excess blast, presence of ellipse. And here we have this erythroid lost colony. If you notice, the normal erythroid colony has been the erythroid colony become dispersed and it mixes with the remaining hemopoietic precursor cell, giving you the busy looking marrow because of loss of the orientation of those cells. Huh? And then this is another features of this megakaryopoiesis. They have hypolobated mega and also with high NC ratio. Another features of this megakaryopoiesis. Here we have a few normal size mega together with micromega. When you are looking at micromega, please carefully look into the nucleus, and not because sometimes you get just cells, the cytoplasm without nucleus. So that one is actually the platelet, not really a micromega. So Trephine will help you to assess subgrade into excess blast or not excess blast by immunohistochemistry. And in this case, we have MDS excess blast with plentiful CD34 cells. Yeah? And that CD34 not only on the myeloid side, but also stain some of this megakaryocyte. Erythroid hyperplasia, because actually they're hyperplastic for all three series, but they are dysplastic. Yeah? That's why you have hypercellular marrow and peripheral cytopenia. The immunohistochemistry for MDS, to highlight the epidermal topography, we use MPO, paratrabecular erythroid and megakaryocyte. We can use, this is not C, but to assess erythroid megakaryocyte, we use either GlyC or GlyA, ECAT, 61, and factor 8 related antigen. Okay, if you notice here, we have quite a long list of immunohistochemistry, but in normal, most of the time, for the megakaryocyte, we rely on CD61. CD61 give quite good and sensitive towards megakaryocyte with both dysplastic megakaryocyte and also normal megakaryocyte. Ecadherin highlight mostly immature cell. Huh? So if you have reactive erythropoiesis, you have many colonies. Say, for example, 10% of those cell are immature cell. Ecadherin tend to pick up the most immature one, but the differentiated erythroid precursor cells won't pick up the ECAD, and it will be confirmed by either GlyA or GlyC. The problem with GlyC and GlyA is that they also stain the what's that? The RBC. So that's the problem. So become sort of a false positive. It's very difficult for you to identify the erythroid colonies from RBCs on low power. So you have to go into low power. So the other alternative is to have CD61, 71, which we are currently still evaluating the pattern. Okay, someone might ask me, what about the role of P53? P53, which is newly introduced as marker for ERI, they are good marker. P53 able to differentiate florid reactive erythropoiesis from M6. Yeah? Because in P53, what's that? In M6, P53 will be strong and diffuse block positivity, meaning the entire cells will be having a strong nuclear stain for P53. Unlike reactive erythropoiesis, the P53 will be heterogeneous, meaning the blast, the very immature one will be strong, yeah. And later you get another cells become weaker and also negative. Okay, that P53 is a new markers that we borrowed from ONG, gynepathology, into hematopathology. We can use that as a single marker for confirmation of M6. Yeah? So the immunohistochemistry also being used to confirm the ellipse and also confirming identifying micromegakaryocyte and also prognostic stratification, CD34. And this is the last one. The distinction of hypocellular MDS versus aplastic anemia. Okay, this is the role of immunohistochemistry in MDS. Okay, you have here CD34 pattern. Yeah? You have and this pattern actually telling you the progress, the progress of a case. When you have individual cells plus a few clusters. This is the clusters, 3 cells forming clusters. So as the disease progress, the cluster becoming aggregates. Clusters, we are referring to groups of 2 to 3 cells, but anything that above 3 or the cutoff point of 5, for example, then you start having aggregates. And then further, you get sheets of CD34. And here, when you have aggregates, you will find the individual cells become less. Okay? As compared to the early part, either early relapse or incomplete remission. The clusters, occasional clusters, but many individual cells. Okay, this is a marker, alternative marker for megakaryocyte, CD42B. So you can have this CD42B give you better, more distinct positivity as compared to factor 8 related antigen. So you can use as alternative to CD61. Okay, hypoplastic MDS. Hypoplastic MDS, okay, overall they are hypocellular. Overall they appear hypocellular. It may mimic the extreme part of hypoplastic MDS may mimic aplastic anemia. So when you have those areas of hypocellular, but in aplastic anemia, the only immature cells would be erythroid colonies, and then accompanied by matured lymphoid cells, as well as plasma cell. So the plasma cell and lymphoid cells are very matured, differentiated. So you don't get the cells with vesicular nuclei with prominent nucleoli, for example. Yeah? So if you are under HLE, you hypocellular marrow, and then you find this kind of cells, cells with high NC ratio, vesicular nuclei, and sometimes conspicuous nucleoli, and then better think of the possibility of hypoplastic MDS. Yeah? Then you can stain with additional stain, MPO as well, and also CD34. Okay, here we have suddenly CD34 forming cluster. Okay. If any one of you, especially the master student, you can use this this article, decision making in, okay, sorry, differentiating hypocellular AML from hypocellular MDS and aplastic anemia. So this Orazi recommend for standardized report. Orazi is the person who sort of always giving updates on MDS. He is the just like Babarabin in hematology, Orazi is MDS, and you have another one from lymphoma. I've forgotten her name, young lymphoma too. So this is the recommendation. For hypoplastic MDS, the hypocellular marrow, oh, syrup. That means when you have, what is this? Let me check. 70-20%. So the major recommendation that this Orazi recommended for the standardized approach is peripheral blood film count at least 100 cells wherever possible, enumerate dysplasia of granulocyte, assess for a blast, then bone marrow aspirate, examine for dysplasia of erythroid, granulocytic, and also megakaryocyte, perform iron stain for ring sideroblasts, and then for bone marrow biopsy, assess for cellularity, ellipse, and this ellipse must be confirmed by CD34, C117, and MPO, and then reticulin stain, and then additional molecular study. So all this, if you are focusing on the Trephine biopsy, for example, so these are the area that we need to standardize, meaning all report, whether you are trying to say this is a hypoplastic MDS or hypocellular ML or AAL. So the report all must elaborate on this area, must have this comment on this area, meaning cellularity and the presence of ellipse and what happened to the reticulin stain. Okay. And then additional, yes, describing the precursors. Uh, this one, I tried to, I'll skip this one because I'm a bit confused with this statement, hypocellular, whether this is due to my typo or because hypocellular marrow with more or equal 70 to 30, sorry, 70 to 20%. Does it make sense? Okay, in MDS, WHO recommend blast count expressed as percentage of all marrow nucleated cells. Yeah? So, determining the prognosis, MDS is a heterogeneous disorder. Establishing diagnosis just first step in clinical management. Assessment of prognosis. Assessment of prognosis based on the 2012 revision IPSS-R of International MDS Working Group. We have to use this criteria for assessment, the prognostic assessment. Okay, what are those criteria? So these are the criteria. The variable percentage of bone marrow blast, hemoglobin, the platelet, and neutrophil. Yeah? And they have the score here. Already summary. So in summary, diagnosis of MDS can be achieved by clinical, peripheral blood, and BMA. The role of BMT in MDS is supplementary. BMT being used use different criteria: topography, that means plasmorphology, pattern, replacing the count in Trephine, and added role of fibrosis and excluding differential diagnosis. Oh, I think that's all. But I really apologize for this slide, because this is unintended to be presented here. This slide, I'm supposed to share with you with other slide, which somehow we have some technical problem of missing the other 50% of those slides. Dr. Razan?
Yes, it's okay. I'm sorry for also the trouble. So, thank you, Doctor, for very comprehensive lecture just now. Now, I would like to open the floor for question and answer.
Okay.
The audience may ask our speaker any question verbally, or you can post a question in the chat box.
Assalamualaikum Dr. Matoha.
Waalaikumsalam.
Okay, so I want to ask regarding cluster of CD34 positive kan. So how
Yes.
many clusters that we consider significant to suspect that there is residual clonal punya disorder blast lah?
Okay, when you have clusters mean it's about 3 cells forming aggregates. That's a clusters. In normal in a normal marrow, you can get CD34 positive, but they are actually far apart from one CD34 to another 34. One, they are is dispersed individually, and they are dispersed individually. They shouldn't form clusters. So if you have clusters, even one clusters, and you must be very sure they are CD34 positive. 3 cells, just the one that I showed you just now. That would be sufficient for you to warn clinician. Okay, the presence of clusters, if we are talking about patient has been on treatment, and this is a follow-up marrow, so our report, presence of occasional clusters indicate incomplete patient is in incomplete remission. If patient has been treated, then on long follow-up, suddenly on follow-up, sometimes just on follow-up, the Trephine shows cluster. The Prof. Bain does not really quantify in terms of how many. They said presence of cluster signify incomplete remission or early relapse. I have my own experience here. So it was that when we saw occasional cluster of CD34 cells, and not long enough, after 2 weeks, this is a case of ALL, and that so yes, ALL, CD20 negative, CD79A positive. CD34 was originally positive. Then, after treatment, after complete induction, then okay, it was alright throughout, and then suddenly on follow up during the Trephine, when during the Trephine, there is no evidence of cytopenia, no evidence of liquid erythrocyte chain changes. But then on follow up, but we noted clusters. Patient otherwise well. So we relay the message to clinician. Okay, the presence of clusters requires close surveillance for the possible relapse. And true enough, 2 weeks later, it's a full-blown relapse of the case. So based on that experience, the cluster is very occasional. I would say when you have long 10 mirror spaces, the cluster is only very few, very few. But I cannot really quantify how many the cluster, because we have many clusters. It's normal. That means we know this is already what is already in relapse already. We have many clusters, isn't it? Do you understand it?
Okay. So can I conclude that even there is one cluster,
Yes.
can be suspicious enough lah to say there is residual or
you can report as the presence of clusters raise the suspicion of early relapse or residual disease.
Okay.
Depending on the situation, if the situation is a follow-up marrow, say for example, after completing the induction, for example, and then you get a cluster of 34, that indicate incomplete remission.
Okay, and then my second questions regarding first fat space.
Okay.
Okay. Let's say if I found that only focal area that lost the first fat space, is it indicate that a pathological condition rather than reactive?
These are the if you notice under slight changes that you have to sort of neglected. I mean, you saw you say you are commenting on the 15 mirror spaces, for example, and then out of 15, one of these mirror spaces showing focal, not foci. Foci mean multiple focal. Focal loss of first fat spaces. Full stop. You notice that, but then in the diagnosis, I don't mention about a possibility of MPN or what. So only focal changes you have to comment, but then don't conclude into your final reports. Just like you when you observe these megakaryotic changes, and very occasional. Shall you consider that as significant, leading toward MPS? Oh, no. Especially when you get this was dangerous, because a patient 60 plus year old and elderly, or patient on drugs, for example, you can get all. So just mention occasional, but not influencing, taking that into consideration of making your final reports. It doesn't influence your final diagnosis.
Okay, thank you.
And same goes to when you have reactive marrow, you have overpopulation. Later, because recently I have few cases. The recent most yesterday. Yesterday we have one case. What what case is that? Let me check. Okay. This is a case of patient presented with neutrophilia, very marked neutrophilia. It's different from the case I mentioned to you early morning. This is yesterday's case. Neutrophilia with increased platelet count. So the marrow shows florid neutrophils. So the question is, but then the megakaryocyte looks atypical too. So so whether neutrophilia is the reactive, the or the reactive megakaryopoiesis, the changes, and then we check. Patient has a splenomegaly. Patient has splenomegaly, and then looking at the megakaryocyte are basically quite small and very atypical looking, but insufficient to call it as M7. So there are ideas. Some say, well, this is a case of prefibrotic PMF. Okay, that's one of the differential. Some straight to M7. Some say no, this is PMF already. Then we check the what's that? We check the reticulin. It's only grade 2. So grade 2 means what? Grade 2 is meaning it's a PMF already. It's no more prefibrotic, because prefibrotic, the reticulin shouldn't exceed grade 1, isn't it? So that means when when the book does not really say quantify the percentage or what, then it can be either on the very low side or on the very extreme side, on the hypercellular part. Slightly different from when we are, so for example, when you are interpreting the immunohistochemistry. In basically, say for example, you want to call it as what? What's that? Burkitt's lymphoma, for example. C-mix positive. Okay. When you say C-mix positive, and all of us must agree, the C-mix must be strong and diffuse, not less than 40%. That's the correct requirement among us. But you don't write into report that the C-mix is a diffuse strong percent. If you want to write, it's okay. But then the basic understanding for us to say C-mix positive is must be not less than 40%. Anything less than 40% is considered as negative. Macam tu. You get it, eh?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Anwar.
Kalau kami just bilang saja from the chat box from Dr. Azhar. Salam Dr. Ahmad. Can you brief us on how to differentiate between the dwarf mega and also micro mega, or can we regard them as the same population?
Okay. Dwarf mega, it is mega, but they are dwarf. Basically, that means they can have a normal lobulation, multilobulation, but then they are very small, and we can still recognize the dwarf mega by H&E, except they are small. Micromega, on the opposites, the micromega always comes with the hypolobated mega. So they all most of the time we tend to miss on H&E, and we realize that suddenly on CD61 or 61 shows many small lymphocyte-like cells picking up the CD61. They are not only stain the cytoplasm, but they're also showing unstained nuclei. So that's micromega. Most of the time, micromega, we don't recognize the presence on HLE. But dwarf mega, yes, you can recognize those cells. But this one are all the description for dysplastic mega. You can lump together. There are evidence of dysplastic mega in the form of dwarf mega, micromega, hypolobated mega, whatever.
Okay, I have a question, Doctor. Actually, sometimes I got a case where to assess a remission post acute lymphoblastic leukemia, in which based on Trephine, we can see that they are actually following the hematogon patterns. But sometimes the TDT are like in small clusters or the TDT in aggregate. But the pattern of hematogon is actually following very well. So can we still commit it as merit in remission as following hematogon pattern, or do we need to alert clinician because the PDT is in clusters, or how we go about that?
If you have that scenario, you have to add one more markers. You compare the TDT and CD34. In hematogons, CD34 has to be far less than TDT. If you have CD34 and TDT sharing the same pattern, and in terms of quantity as well as pattern, it is very much likely that this is a residual disease or incomplete remission. Because 34 should be following TDT in hematogons. In hematogons, 34 is very much less.
There's a few cases here. Then we see that the 34 are very less, but the PDT, we can see that there are small clusters, sometimes coming 3 to 5 cells.
Oh.
And then the PET score is actually more than TDT, 79 is more than that. So actually they're following hematogon. But the only difference, the only salient that is the PDT itself. Sometimes they tend to form in clusters, although there are more than 34. So can we just safely say that this is pointing toward remission?
Okay.
PDT on indicated, very minimal, with that 34, very scattered and minimized.
Yeah. We encounter similar experience of LICAS cases. We concluded as hematogons because of that pattern. We ignore the clusters. But then finally, about a month later, patient relapsed with full-blown blast. So then retrospectively, we look back at the slide, then suddenly, this is the slide that we sort of favor towards hematogons rather because they have CD79A more than CD20, and then CD10, but CD10 follow 79A. TDT less than TDT only half of 79A. Occasional cluster, mainly individual cells. So because of pattern, the pattern follow the hematogons pattern, except in this case the cluster. And CD34 is also less. The one that CD34 similar to TDT was a different case. This case is we concluded as a hematogons, but then no, it's 2 weeks later, not only 1 month, 2 weeks later. This Dr. Raihan case. 2 weeks later, they come with full blown relapse. ALL. So then we learn from that. To stress that cluster is something carrying a serious message to us that they indicate something impending transformation, impending relapse, or just incomplete, not incomplete remission. This is our experience now. But to put into reports, probably it's safe to if actually in the report what the report wants is to let clinician to continue treatment and yet without losing the patient. Meaning, you can comment the presence of clusters requires close surveillance of the possibility of relapse, early relapse. Macam itulah. Because this is obviously a borderline area, kan? They have all the pattern of hematogon. Suddenly, you have occasional clusters which does not support classical hematogons description. Always have the kind of scenario because it's a dynamic process.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad.
Okay.
Sorry, Dr. Ahmad. I have one question. It's actually continuation from the previous question this morning.
Okay.
In the case of increased CD117 positive cells, so in the case of AML or AML, so how can we use ECAT to differentiate between CD117 positive cell is actually early stage of erythroids or immature myeloid or some instead of using TP53 because I came across a journal interpretation for TP53. Usually we need to grade the staining, the intensity of the staining to differentiate between reactive or pure erythroid leukemia. So can we just use ECAT or glycocorin A to differentiate between those two immature myeloid or early stage of erythroblasts? I mean, early stage of erythroidosis.
If you have suspicions of erythroblasts you mean erythroblasts in M6?
I mean, in the case of AML with erythroid hyperplasia.
Oh,
sometimes
hyperplasia. Okay. Okay. Yeah. If you are in a center where you have all the markers, you have P53, you have ECAT, you have GLY A or GLY C, then just to sort of as a learning process, I would encourage you to do all those because your finding might be different from finding of other centers, but then at least you can have more confidence to say to arrive into that conclusion. Say, for example, the problem with interpreting GLY A or GLY C in this context is when the background specimen is hemorrhagic it really disturb you. You cannot really interpret the cells, those the erythroid. No? And then if they are reactive, normally, okay, if you have reactive, if you have florid erythroid hypoplasia, the ECAT will shows only less than 10% of the cells are picking up the ECAT. The remaining will be negative, and then likely to be reactive hypoplasia. Because if they are all immature, then it should be ECAT positive, and rather. But then, if they are less hemorrhagic, those cells, be it neoplastic or reactive, they will always be GLA A or GLA C positive. Okay, okay. That's one thing. And how this pattern, then you check with your P53. If P53 heterogeneous, heterogeneous means you get very strong nuclear positivity, and then there are some moderate, some very weak, some negative. That's heterogeneous. Huh? But you get heterogeneous in that groups of cells likely to be reactive. Because if they are neoplastic, if they are M6, should be homogeneous, strong positivity. Strong means strong, very, very darkly brown stain. Because the issue here I mentioned, because sometimes you have to, especially over when towards the end of the year, when your HOD or whoever, okay, they start issuing memo. Okay, please optimize. Sorry, please what's that? Judiciously use your immunohistochemistry because we are running short of budget. That's always the limitation.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmad.
Okay,
So we have a from Dr. Siva. Good afternoon, Dr. Ahmad. In the meeting assessment for AML, for example, with the recent GCSF, and the clinician insists on narrow split Trephine instead of waiting for the reduction of GCSF effect, how can we comment if the blast percentage is mildly increased? And how can we differentiate whether is this a clonal blast or is this a reactive towards GCSF?
Again, please. I couldn't get the question. Let me check the text.
Dr. Siva, can you explain a bit on your question?
Good afternoon, Dr. Ahmad.
Okay.
So yeah, in the background of an AML remission assessment,
Okay.
and the periphery FBP shows no increase in blast, no blast, okay, but there is cytopenia, and then the clinician gave GCSF, and they insist on performing bone marrow assessment at that time point instead of waiting for the effect of the GCSF to reduce. So, if we find that the Trephine, that the marrow aspirate and Trephine shows borderline blast increase, so how can we differentiate? How can we conclude that this is reactive towards the GCSF, or could it be a residual disease or not in remission?
Normally in GSF related marrow, the grand series will show some degree of differentiation, isn't it? So if you take a group of cells with immature looking, blast looking cells, and then you stain with CD34, for example, and then they will give you the what's that? Hematogons-like pattern, meaning some pick up the 34, some doesn't. Or you can also add CD117. Some cell pick up the CD117, some doesn't. Why? And most of the time, the word some actually only one or two cells only. The majority will be negative for 34 or 117. Why? Because at any point of time, even morphologically, it looks blast. The moment those cells shows ability to differentiate, meaning to become mature, they lost the CD34 expression, despite the morphological blast looking. But if and because that goes to what's that? How to relate this one? CD34, CD34. Okay. If you can, if you notice, this AML case, for example, AML, sorry, not AML, 34. I'm now describing in relation to ALL first. Okay, if you have ALL ball, for example, can you differentiate between ball with CD20 positive ball and CD20 negative ball in terms of CD34 expression? Dr. Siva?
Yeah.
Okay.
So in remission assessment, so I think we focus on if ball, so we focus on the immature markers like the hematogon pattern.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. This is I'm talking about the diagnostic marrow. You have two patients. Two patients of ball. One patient has 34 positive, TDT positive, and sorry, two patients of ball. One has CD20 positive, one has CD20 negative. So with these two patients, what do you expect the CD34 expression? Are they similar or different?
Maybe expecting the 20 positive to have lesser 34.
Yes, or sometimes negative.
Maturing pattern.
Yes, because when the blast cells undergoing maturation, actually they lost some of the blast markers. And what more in patient with reactive. So reactive means those are typical cells, the precursor looking cells. Actually, they have the ability to undergo maturation. The only thing that with time they will show maturation. But at that point of time when we do the Trephine or aspirate, the maturation process stop at that time. But then actually they have the ability to further mature. So when any cell with that kind of ability, meaning they have maturation, the maturation process is not arrested. So they lose the blast marker, 34 negative. So in our context, if morphology shows how to differentiate between incomplete remission or due to GSF effect, 34 well, most of the time I will give you the answers lah. The 34 pattern.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ahmad. So this will be similar to how we use the P53 staining for the M6.
Yes, 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 yes.
Kirakam.
Okay.
Do we have any question from the floor? I guess we don't have any more questions. But if you guys have any question later on, maybe we can ask during our thesis discussion next week.
Okay.
So thank you, Dr. Ahmad, for a very long day today. Finally, we have come to the end of our webinar today. So before we end the session, I would like to remind all the audience to fill up the feedback form and that will be posted in the chat box. And we will also share the MMA QR code on the screen. And thank you again to our speaker today, Dr. Ahmad, on behalf of the organizing committee. We also would like to thank the audience for attending the webinar today. And inshallah, we'll be meeting again next week for our cases discussion. So before that, I would like to wish everyone, may this divine month bring you and your family together and multiply your happiness by infinity. Wishing Ramadan Kareem to you and your family. Thank you very much.